Hi guys. Hey, as you might know, in just a few weeks, we're having an outdoor service at LifeSpring, and we're doing something that we do once a year, which is we do an outdoor service, and we're going to do baptisms on that Sunday. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and kind of talk with you guys about baptism. So I thought, well, what better place to do that than right here in front of my little fish pond in the garden. So I made myself an iced coffee, and I thought I would just sit here and, man, that's good. I thought I would just sit here and talk to you about baptism kind of from the heart, in a simple way that I hope will connect with you. So I don't know if you've been baptized in your life, or if you haven't, or if you've ever thought about it, but I still think that you'll find some of the things I'm going to share kind of interesting. And here's the thing. This is going to sound weird, but I don't really want to talk to you about baptism. What I really want to talk to you about is new life. And if you've been around LifeSpring, then you know that we believe that what God is up to and what he came in Jesus to do was to bring us new life. I mean, that's what Jesus says in John 10:10, right? He says, you know, all kinds of people and all kinds of powers, he calls them the thief, comes to kill and steal and destroy. And then he says this, but I have come that you might have life and have it to the full. So what we've come to understand, those of us on this journey with Jesus, is that life is full of struggles, and we get wounded, and there's all these messes, and we struggle with our sense of identity and our sense of worth and what the purpose of our life is and all these things. And what keeps us trapped there is the simple fact that we don't really understand that we are loved, that we have been created in love, that God has redeemed us in love, that he wants to hold us and keep us in his love. And we don't understand that because there's love, which can dispel all that mess, that there's a path for us. There's a new path. So the journey with God is the journey of coming to know that we are held in this love that's never going to let us go. And then we begin to journey out of that darkness and out of all that other mess. And it's a process. There's no doubt about it. But it's a good and a beautiful journey. And at LifeSpring, that's what we want to help people take, is that kind of journey, as we love each other and as we walk together as a community. So, but the early Christians, they knew an important truth that helped them take hold of this, because that's really our struggle, isn't it? We hear about, oh, God loves us and all this kind of stuff, but can we take hold of it? So they knew this truth that really helped them take hold of it, and that was this. They understood that at the cross, when Jesus went to his death, he took what the Apostle Paul calls our old man, all that mess, all our fear and confusion and the selfishness and whatever, the chaos that comes out of it, that he took that mess to the grave with him, so that just as he was resurrected, we could get in on the resurrection part, and he could resurrect us into new life. And so you might say, well, I love that picture of the journey, Pastor Fran, and I believe in that, and that's the journey I'm on, or that's the journey I want to be on. But what does it have to do with baptism? Well, here's the thing. This is actually the picture that the early Christians saw with baptism, that when a person went out into the water and they went under the water, it was like being buried with Christ. Their old man, their old woman, their old person dying away, their old self. And coming up out of the water was like being raised with Christ. And so this is exactly how Paul describes it in one of his letters in Romans chapter 6. He says, so since we've been buried with him through baptism into death, he's done this so that just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, in the same way, we could be raised from the dead to walk in newness of life. Isn't that beautiful? So what God does in baptism, and I know you probably have some questions about baptism, and I'm going to try to answer some of those in a minute. But what God does in baptism is he invites us to bring our whole self. See, this is why we do it with our body. A lot of times we talk about how the journey starts with the heart and with the mind, and it does, right? Jesus has taught us that what you do on the outside in your life, it comes from what's going on the inside. We know that. But it eventually, the idea is that it comes to bear all this good and beautiful fruit on the outside of our life. So in baptism, God invites us to take our whole self, body, soul, and spirit, and go out into the water and confirm that this is the journey we want to be on. We want to be on this journey into wholeness and freedom and goodness and life. And so we take everything we are, not just our heart. We don't just say, oh yeah, I'll kind of follow. We say, no, I'm going to take my whole self, my whole me, out into the water. And I'm going to confirm my dying and my rising with Christ. And it's a beautiful thing. In the early church, this is what they did. They went out to die and rise with Christ in the water. So now I know people have questions about baptism because churches do baptism lots of different ways, and over 2,000 years we got a lot of versions of baptism in different kind of churches, which is okay, but it's also confusing sometimes to people. So here are some questions people ask me. One, do I have to be baptized to be saved? And there's fear behind that question. Like, is God going to say you didn't go do the water thing, so I can't let you into heaven? And the answer is no, that's ridiculous. Absolutely not. No more than God is going to say, you didn't go to church last Sunday, I'm not going to let you into heaven, or, whatever it might be, because that just runs counter to everything we've come to know about who God is. God is light, and God is love. And so God's not up there setting up little trick regulations that you have to keep if you're gonna be able to get in with him. Absolutely not. So I hope if you've not been baptized as an adult, as a follower of Jesus, that you'll think about it. But I don't want you to think about it as a should or a regulation, because one of the things I've learned, and I don't think it's just me, is as soon as you tell people, well, you have to do this, God says you have to do this, which is why I object. Like in a lot of churches, they say, well, baptism is an act of obedience. You better be baptized to be obedient, And I just think you suck the life out of the thing. It's like, I know churches that say, well, Jesus said we should wash each other's feet, so you better wash each other's. As soon as you tell people to be a servant, they're not being a servant from the heart. And as soon as you tell somebody to go out in the water and firm up their journey with God, they're not doing it because they see the beauty of it, and they just want in on it, and they want that experience as part of their own, the commencement of their own journey. So no, you don't have to be baptized to be saved. Jesus said to the thief on the cross, this very day, you'll be with me in paradise, and that guy didn't have a chance to be baptized. So let's put that to rest. Another question people have is, what about kids? And there's a couple of questions here. Hang on, I need a sip of this iced coffee. There's a couple questions here about kids. One is, well, what about babies? Aren't babies baptized? So we don't really baptize babies much around LifeSpring. The early church, their practice was to baptize those who were old enough to, with their mind and heart, comprehend and process and enter into faith. But I don't have any super great objection to the idea of infant baptism. I realize that the way it has been taught, it's very meaningful for people. So I just actually was talking with our elders about this. If somebody came to me and said, we really love the concept of infant baptism and we would like you to baptize our child, would I do it? I would do it. Now, a lot of times what we do when people have babies that are born at LifeSpring, born into our communities, we do something called dedication, infant dedication. It's just a little dedication of the parents and the child to God, and it's kind of like a baptism but without the water. So let's not get hung up on all of that. If you have a new child and there's something you want to talk to me about with that and what we should do, man, just come have that conversation. So the other question about kids, though, is people say, well, what if I have a child who's 8 or 10 or 12 or 14 or 16 and they want to be baptized? Is that okay, or do they have to wait till they're an adult? And my answer is, it is okay, because they are old enough to understand or begin to understand with their mind and their heart to process this idea of loving God and wanting to follow Jesus and wanting to take this journey. What I would say to you as a parent, though, is this. You know your child. So do you think your child is ready for that? Because it is a big thing. I'm going to talk in a minute about whether baptism is a one-time only or a once-for-all thing. But there is a sense in which, this is something you do often. This isn't the way it works out for everybody, but often it's sort of the commencement or the beginning of your journey with Christ. That's often the way it was in the early church. So does your child understand that? Can they say, I want in. Both my kids were baptized pretty young, Luke and Joanna, both of our children, and they're both still walking with Jesus because we discerned that they were at a place where they said, yeah, I'm ready to make this decision, and I'm ready to do this and decide. So absolutely. So if you have a child or preteen or a teen who wants to be baptized, please communicate with me about that, and we will absolutely figure that out. So that's the other kind of the question about kids. Now here's another question that kind of goes back to kids. We got a lot of kid questions, don't we? People often ask me, what if I was baptized as an infant? Maybe I was Catholic, or I was Lutheran, or I was Episcopalian, and I was baptized as an infant, but now I really understand the journey, and I think maybe I should, or I kind of wanna get baptized. Can I do that? And the answer is absolutely, because you have to remember what God is like. God is not up there saying there's a bunch of rules about baptism. God is saying, is your heart turned toward me? Is your heart coming alive to me? Do you want to take this journey in your life with me into wholeness and goodness and freedom? And if you do, well, that's about dying and rising. So let's go do the thing. And so the answer is, well, of course you can be baptized. So I was baptized as an infant, and I cherish that. My parents did it with a good heart. We were Catholic, and it meant a lot to my parents, and it meant something to me growing up. But then when I really got on this journey for myself, and I opened my heart to God, and I said, Jesus, I'm going to follow you. When that happened, then I read all those stories about people being baptized in the New Testament, coming with their own faith and their own heart, and dying and rising with Christ in the water. And I said, I want to do that. And so I did, actually, when I was about 19 years old. So you can certainly be baptized. Now here's another question that people often ask me, and I don't know what you'll think about my answer, but I stand by it. I've had people come and they've said, Pastor Fran, I grew up in, let's just pick something. I grew up in a Baptist church. Baptist churches are big on baptism, believers' baptism. I grew up in a Baptist church, and when I was 12 years old, they told me if I was going to follow Jesus, I should be baptized. So I thought, well, I better get baptized. So I got baptized. I even had one guy who used to ride the bus to a mega church that picked up kids in his neighborhood. And he said, we went to church one Sunday, and there were like thousands of people there. And they said, hey, if you go through this baptistry, he was like 10, if you go through this baptistry and get baptized, on the other side, we'll give you candy. So they did it as a show, right, to show all these kids getting baptized, which is weird. But my point is this. People will sometimes ask me, if I was baptized like as a child, an older child or a preteen, or even in my young adulthood, but I was kind of baptized because I was told I should be baptized. And my heart wasn't open the same way, and I didn't understand the journey into a new life the same way, how God is living in us and recreating us. And now that I understand that, man, I kind of wish I was getting baptized now instead of back there when I was 12 and I didn't understand anything. Pastor Fran, can I get baptized again? And my answer is, how fast can we get into the water? Absolutely, because the whole thing is just bringing your whole self, right? Body, soul, and spirit, and saying, I want to confirm my journey into new life. I want to say to God and to myself and to my brothers and sisters and my family and whoever, this is how I identify my life, is that I'm on this journey with God and He's making me new. And I'm all in, and I'm going, and I'm never going to stop. And so, yes, you can be baptized again. I have often, even now, I'm 61, and I kind of want to be baptized again. Now, maybe you'll think, that is weird. You're the pastor of our church. But I kind of do, because when I was 19, you know why I got baptized? Now, I was in love with Jesus, and I was excited. But I got baptized because I was told I should. And sometimes when Linda and I go over to New Buffalo, Michigan, just for an afternoon, and we're standing on the beach looking at the waves, I just want to run in and say, Lord, body, soul, and spirit, dying and rising with you all over again. So, who knows? But yes, you can be, whatever the reason is, if your heart wants to, come into the water with Jesus. So if you've listened to this, you probably understand more about baptism than you did when you started listening to this. So now that you do, and you see this beautiful picture the early Christians had of baptism, if you say, you know, I think I'd like to do this, a couple of things. One, it's real simple. You'll just come that day that we have the service, and you'll just wear what you can wear into the water, and we'll have this, we borrow this nice outdoor baptismal pool that'll be set up. and you and I'll go in the water, and you know, if you're married and your spouse wants to come in the water with us, they can do that, and you will enact with your body, soul, and spirit, dying and rising with Christ, and say, that's me, I'm on a dying and rising journey. Beautiful, simple. We'll do it right as part of the worship service that morning. So if you're interested in that, there's a form on the page where this video is. Just fill that out and that'll come to me and I'll know that you're interested. Or you can just email me. My email is real simple. It's just fran@yourlifespring.org. But you can also email me if you have a question. Maybe you've heard all this and you say, oh, I have a question, Pastor Fran. And hopefully you guys know you can ask me anything. So shoot me an email, ask me your questions, and in 3 weeks or so, when we do our outdoor service, let's go out into the water and let's die and rise with Jesus. Because, you know, we are on this journey of being made completely new as human beings, and it has given us hope and life and trajectory. We have some sense of what it's about and where we're going, and we've got this renewed sense of love, the love God has for us, and how we're called to this love for other people. And oh my gosh, baptism is just saying all the way, I am in on that. So anyway, that's it. Cheers to dying and rising with Jesus in the waters of baptism, and let me know what you're thinking, and we'll talk then.